and we'll see. It depends on what they allow as far as fan interaction. But, guys, we found out this week that indeed what we thought was going to happen. We reported several weeks ago after talking to some folks in the NFL office and some folks with the Raiders as well that told us that the training camp most likely could be moved to Las Vegas, to Henderson, to the team's new headquarters. And Q, they basically pulled that trigger. The NFL made it mandatory for NFL teams to stay at home, basically, to stay at their practice facilities. That surprise you at all?
No, not at all. I mean, everything is going to err on the side of caution now. I mean, just moving forward in 2020, and who knows, maybe moving forward forever. I mean, we just don't know how this is going to go. So it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a shock when they made that. And honestly, I believe they made the right call, just because you don't want to have to worry about traveling there, traveling back, traveling here. You have to do as little traveling as possible. You really just want to kind of get in and out. And so I think for everybody to stay home and use their own facilities, as long as they're able to do that, I think that's a great idea moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chaz,
usually, yeah.
No, Chaz, I was going to ask you, the NBA, like you guys used to go to Hawaii and do all kinds of stuff too, but we're going to see all sports kind of stay close to home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the owners, the owners want to go have fun. It's kind of their time to shine. That's why. So every other year we went to Hawaii. I thought that was like a huge bonus. I couldn't believe it. But the coaches, they want to get their players out of their comfort zone. They want to get away from their daily distractions to focus solely on football, and also to build that camaraderie, right? So instead of going home after practice or hanging out with their friends, these players are all staying at the same hotel. They're going out to eat together. We saw it on Hard Knocks last year. Building that chemistry is key. But, this is a unique situation that the Raiders are in, not only, moving to a new facility, but moving to a new city. So I feel like going back and forth from Napa, when these guys are still trying to get furniture in their homes, would be too much. So I definitely think it's a smart move just to have everything in one place, at least for this first season.
Yeah, and guys, the other thing too, though, and nobody's really talked about this, because I think a couple of reasons. One, and with all due respect to the folks up in the Bay Area, I know you lost your team. I know how that all goes. And so the Raider fans that had just lost the team in Oakland, very excited. Hey, look, camp is staying in Napa. Mark Davis committed last year. He said, listen, for the long term, I think we're going to keep it in Napa. And that may still happen. It may. But in some ways, I'm going to take a different approach here and say, listen, I think that this is actually very good for the team, the way this is panning out. I know it might not be good for the fans in Northern California, or maybe it is because you can come to Vegas now. But anyway, I think what's good about it is that, listen, you're moving the entire organization. And for those players, I know, because I've been talking to players here, organizing interviews for the show, a lot of them are now currently moving to Las Vegas over the next month or so before July hits. But for them to now be able to move here and settle in a little bit, Q, before camp starts, and then be here as the facility opens up, as the stadium opens up, I think there's some big upside for that.
I do too, and especially since it's a brand new facility anyway. I mean, you're going to go ahead and get an early start and early jump on testing out your new facility and testing out all those nice football fields that they have out there. Now, the one thing I will say about it is, well, Napa is very cool and it's very not hot, and Vegas is very opposite of that. Vegas is very hot, similar to what Texas is. I mean, so they're going to have to organize their practices either early in the morning or later in the evenings to try to avoid the heat, probably really early in the morning. But besides that, I mean, I think everything is going to be good to go. That's the only element that I think that they're going to have to try to overcome.
No, and they have the 1.5 fields indoors. If you guys have seen the pictures or seen our drone video of the practice facility and headquarters, they have the ability to go inside, but you guys all know that when you're doing training camp and you got all those guys before you trim rosters, you can't fit them all in that building. So yeah, I'm thinking, and I'm sure the players aren't going to love this, but I'm thinking the sun here comes up just before 5 a.m. They might be out at 5 a.m. And I think that the people that you might see, Q, who complain most about the early times, probably not the players, but probably those in the media who are going to go out there at 5 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. That's the truth. And it's funny, I talked to John McClain from the Houston Chronicle, been covering the NFL. I talked to him every single week, and that was one of the things he said. He said that's the only thing that's going to be a different kind of a hang up is the fact that the weather. You're going to have to accommodate for the weather, and you have to accommodate for the heat and make sure that the players are in the best position to succeed. And so yeah, the media is going to complain about it a little bit, but as far as the players, they should be able to take care of it, no problem.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think, too, Chaz, you look at this as also the Raiders coming a little bit early is good for the market, for fans in the market. Maybe folks that aren't Raider fans per se yet, who are looking forward into seeing the NFL in this market for the first time, they now will get an early taste of it, and they can actually, depending on how they allow fan participation, they can actually drive over and check it out instead of watching training camp and all of the battles happening for this team, who's going to make this team happening in Napa.
Sure. Yeah, you talked about it. I think we had Mark Bedane on the show. He talked about that the fans will be allowed to the practices and the training camp and facilities there. So it would be nice for the city to get a little taste, a little teaser. The guys coming in early, starting to see some action. I don't know if hockey's coming back here, but this city's ready for it. You see it all around town. I'm seeing stickers, I'm seeing T-shirts, I'm seeing hats. This town's ready for the Raiders, and it would be nice to have a little early action here.
And Q, what do you? I mean, what's your gut tell you? The way we keep hearing, and I know you talk to a lot of the same people I do. We keep hearing that the NFL, when it comes back in September, more than likely we're going to have at least most of the fans in the stand, if not full stadiums. Mm-hmm. What's your gut tell you on training camp? Because we're basically a month and a half, maybe a little less than that, away from training camp here. You think fans are going to be allowed there, and maybe just in limited numbers?
I don't think so. I mean, I honestly don't. I mean, when it just comes to gut feeling, I think that they're going to try to keep the fans away. I think they're not going to really want them to be there and interacting just because they're coming from somewhere else and coming in. And, you don't really know. Now, again, they could do it in a limited fashion like you said, but I just think unless maybe they'll specify just one day, like, hey, this is a fan day, a fan appreciation day for the fans that can come. But I honestly don't believe that there'll be any fans at training camp. I just think that it'll just be too much work, and that they just really want to try to, like I said before, err on the side of caution.
Well, and I would love to see them use maybe technology here. I know, look, practices, for those of you who've not been to camp, there's a little bit of excitement at the beginning of the day. The players are running out there. They do greets. Some of them will sign autographs and things like that. It's a great fan interaction. But besides that, it's a lot of drudgery. I mean, you got guys learning positions, learning offense, learning defense, fighting for jobs. So I'd love to see them maybe televise some of it or stream some of it, some of the areas there, and maybe do some Q&A, some virtual interactions for the fans that can't be there if that goes down. Because, listen, training camp for hardcore football heads, gym rats, if you will, that to them, Chaz, is a big deal. And so you don't want to take that all away just because they can't be there in person.
Right. No, you actually took the words right out of my mouth. I was thinking that, kind of sort of like Hard Knocks last year, they could film a lot more of it and give us a lot more content that way, because the fans, they want to be there. They want to see it. But I'm with Q. I believe they're probably going to err on the side of caution and not have fans, or if they do have fans, they won't have that same interaction. So I won't have that same feeling, it won't be a good vibe like it is usually, because the fans will have to be way on the other side of the field where they can't even be that close to the players and see the action. So if they filmed it more and they gave us a little bit more of that, I think that would probably appease everybody, and it'd be a great thing just for the NFL.
Hey, Scott, real quick, I think that, and this is just, again, my gut feeling, I think sports are going to be completely covered differently than what we're used to as well. From our point of view, our media standpoint, I don't think that we'll have the interaction with the players like we used to. I don't think we'll have as much locker room access. I think it's going to be, now that everyone's found that Zoom works so well and all that, I think that there's going to be a lot more of, okay, hey, coach is jumping on this Zoom conference at 12 o'clock. Everybody who's part of the media jump on. I think that that's the direction that they're going to go moving forward, and I think it's probably going to be that way probably forever. I don't think that what we've been doing for the last 20,000 million years, I don't think it's going to be the same.
It's a great point. I think that, one of the things when you cover a team day to day is you get to develop those relationships with players, and so that's, I know for media, that's really important, because that's how you get to know guys and you get a little bit of a feel for the team. And so, but I think you're right, Q. I think you look at, for example, press conferences, the way the Raiders have done them in the past. Now, we've been covering the team for 3 years from a distance. Now they're going to be here, and now it all changes. So I'm okay with it, but in some ways I'm like, damn, it's finally happening, and now it's going to change. But press conference, great. You can do the distancing there. But, yeah, the days of walking through the locker room, maybe, especially this year. Now, maybe eventually it goes back to a little bit of that, but I agree with you. I think when you look at 2020 particularly, they're not going to want any kind of recurrence of this thing happening. So to have guys, reporters coming in locker rooms after the game and doing those big scrums, I think you're right, Q. I think those days are gone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just what my gut feeling's been telling me. Not to mention, when you get all these reporters that are going to be in the press box, I don't think that there are going to be as many people in the press boxes as it usually is, and so credentials are probably going to be limited. You're going to have to pick and choose who you're giving credentials to, and making sure that everyone's distanced in in the press conference setting. So, and at least for this year, but that's just kind of how I think that sports are going to be covered now moving forward. It's just going to be different than what we're used to.
Well, and we saw this week too a rough week because we saw The Athletic. We have some good friends there, including Vic Tafer and Tashawn Reed, who's now the new beat writer for the Raiders here in Las Vegas, just moved here. Welcome to him. But we saw them cut 8% of their staff, right, because of what's happened. There's been no sports. There's been no revenue. They're subscription-based, but you also have ad-based media. We all feel that. We're in radio. We know what ads have been like over the last 2 months. And so I think you're going to see games. We've seen it already. You're going to see games called from studios, like they do with some of the Mexican soccer leagues here, where guys are sitting in Miami and they're doing a game that's in Mexico City. I think you're going to see more of that too, because travel's been restricted. A lot of big corporations are no longer allowing their folks to travel, so it's all going to change. All right. Well, we're going to step aside for a break and pay some bills if we could. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Raiders' reaction to the events of America this week. So some of you will be triggered, but that's okay. We're going to talk about it. Did the Raiders do enough? Were you happy with how they responded? We'll talk about that next. You're listening to The Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.